Griffin Middle Data Overview by Britton Proctor. The objectives of this data overview is to review the achievement for students that meet or exceed standards organized by subgroup and subject while compared at the school, district, and state level for the last 2 years. To compare achievement data for the last 3 years for school, district, and state level. And to observe the change in school population over the last 3 years. This presentation will also observe the teacher experience levels over the last 3 years, as well as identify strengths and weaknesses of instruction. Questions to consider for the data. What subgroups have demonstrated increases in their achievement? What subgroups have demonstrated losses in their achievement? Are there any trends in the data? And how do the overall scores compare over the years between the school, district, and the state? According to the school intervention plan at Griffin Middle School, the goal was to increase ESOL math and ELA scores by 3%, as well as increase math and ELA scores by economically disadvantaged students by 3%. This graph shows the population of Griffin Middle School as it has increased by the subgroups over the last 4 years. You can see the bar on the far left is the 2016, followed by 2017, 2018, and 2019 currently. You can see that in the Hispanic population there has been a steady increase. There's a less than 15 students of the Indian population, not enough to be counted. There's been a decrease in the Asian population. Black population has also increased, and the white population has actually started to drop between 2018 and up till this year, 2019. Multiracial students has a very small number, but has increased a little bit. And the overall population increase has gone up to 1,386 over the past 4 years, up from 1,211. So important numbers to keep in mind as we're going over test results. Change in Griffin population at middle school. Over the past 3 years, the demographic makeup has remained pretty steady. From 2017 to 2019, about 50% has been Hispanic and 28% white. There has been a slight decrease in the percentage of white students by 2% from 2018 to 2019, and a decrease in the Asian population from 3 years ago. Population for Cobb County has remained pretty much the same. The overall population of the county has increased. However, it is pretty even split between white, black, and Hispanic populations. This is pretty different from the Griffin Middle School population. As you can see here, with the Griffin Middle School population, it is at least half Hispanic. With Cobb County, Hispanic is at about 21%. So Griffin Middle does not exactly represent what the Cobb County population is. And when we compare those two to the student body makeup of Griffin Middle, Cobb County, and the state for 2019, we can see that Cobb County on the whole somewhat closely represents Georgia at the state level. However, Griffin Middle School does not really represent either Cobb or the state when it comes to demographics. Only 2019 is represented in the state because for the past 3 years, the state data has remained pretty steady in all demographic populations. For the free and reduced lunch, we have a comparison over 2 years. The graph on the left is for 2017. The graph on the right is 2018. Griffin Middle School has had a decrease in free and reduced lunch, being 68%, dropping to 66%. Cobb County has remained fairly steady with a drop of only 1%, and the state has remained at a solid 60%. So Griffin Middle is actually far above Cobb County numbers and somewhat above the Georgia state numbers when it comes to percent of free and reduced lunch. The following slides are going to be the CCRPI score for students according to their demographic population and how they scored from 2018 to 2019. And it's going to be compared to, the middle will be Griffin Middle School, to the left is the Cobb County scores, and to the right is the Georgia State scores. We can see here that while there has been less than 15 students at Griffin Middle, they did increase last year. Again, these are for the ELA scores. The black population had an increase in ELA, keeping pace with Cobb County and far above the Georgia State level. The Hispanic population has had an increase for ELA, but is still below both county and state level. The ELA scores have had again an increase for Griffin Middle. They're above the state level, but not quite up at county level. For the white population, for ELA, they had a larger increase from 2018 to 2019 than at both the county and state level. However, and they also exceeded both the county and state level scores as well. For ELA, economically disadvantaged English language learners and students with a disability are all compared over 2 years, 2018 to 2019. For Cobb County, you can see there has been an increase in all three populations. Griffin Middle School actually saw a decrease in students with disabilities, dropping from 11% to about 10%, but the other two populations did increase, and the state level also saw something of a dramatic decrease in students with disabilities. The next few slides will be their math scores from the CCRPI site. All students overall had a slight decrease at Griffin Middle. That's all demographic populations and subgroups. And Cobb County had an increase, and the state had a slight decrease as well. For the American Indian and Alaska Native, very small amount of students. However, there has been a major increase for Griffin Middle School, a large decrease for Cobb County, and a slight decrease for the Georgia State. There weren't enough students for the Asian or Pacific Islander at Griffin Middle. For the black population, we can see there was a decrease in their math scores, and state-wise, they were Griffin Middle outperformed at the state level, which also remained pretty even. For the Hispanic population, you can see a slight decrease in ELA scores. In math scores. However, both the county and state had a slight increase for state, where they were both state and county outscored Griffin Middle. And for the economically disadvantaged English language learners and students with disabilities, we can see that for the economically disadvantaged at Griffin Middle, right here, we have again an actual decrease in students with disabilities, slight decrease, and the others saw as well as a decrease in the economically disadvantaged students. And the county remained fairly even keel, although they also saw a decrease in students with disabilities, and the state also saw a decrease in scores with students with disabilities. So that's something we've seen across the board. For all students for science, Griffin Middle saw tremendous gains, gaining from 30 to 37%, although still scoring far beneath the county and state level. For American Indian and Native Alaskan, there weren't enough to gauge. At Cobb County, this is 0% because there was too few to count for 2019. Pacific Islander, there were not enough to count according to the CCRPI website. And among the black population, there's a tremendous gains of 11% going from 25% up to 30%, and outscoring the state level and just under the county level. For the Hispanic population, the CCRPI, we saw some increases for the white population, though they scored under the county, who did outperform the state. For all of the for these three groups, we can see that that there was excuse me. There was it has remained fairly even from 2018 to 2019 at the county level. However, again, a decrease for students with disability. For social studies, there were large gains at Griffin Middle School for all students. Alaska Native, there weren't quite enough. For Asian and Pacific Islander, not quite enough at Griffin Middle to be gauged. Large gains in the black population, going from 32 to 46 to 45%, outscoring both state and county levels. Very large gains for the Hispanic population, going from 29 to 34%. And multiracial, not quite enough to be counted according to the CCRPI website. White students also had some gains, outscoring the county and state level. The number of teachers at Griffin Middle have increased over the last few years, going from 71 up to 79. Years of experience with teachers. 3 years ago, 2016, the average was 9.04 years. Then it dropped to 7.72, and it increased to 8.34 years, the average years of experience per teacher. And the teachers that taught 30 or more years, I believe, are the outliers that kind of threw off all the other years. As we can see, there are more years there are 44 teachers, more teachers than ever this year, that taught 1 to 10 years, and the smallest number of teachers this year that have 1 or less year of experience, or just our first year teachers. Their certificate level, we can see, what this graph is showing us, how this year in 2019, we have the most amount of teachers that have master's degrees. The number of teachers with bachelors have actually decreased, so those that had a bachelor's probably have a master's this year. And we also see a slight upswing in teachers with specialist degrees. Weaknesses that we have seen is in the area of ELA. The Hispanic subgroup underperformed when compared to both state and district scores. Both the black and Hispanic subgroups scored lower in 2019 when compared to 2018 Griffin Middle scores. And students with disabilities and economically disadvantaged students had lower in the 2019 than 2018 in ELA and math. Strengths, all racial subgroups saw increases in ELA, and all racial subgroups saw increases in science. Hispanic subgroups saw tremendous gains in social studies. Overall performance increased in all subject areas. While student population has increased, the number of white students has dropped, and the average number of years of experience for teachers have fluctuated. However, the average has gone down while the number of teachers has increased. Things to consider when we're looking at this data is that during the last year, Griffin Read 30 was implemented, so students would read 30 minutes each day before school started, assisting ELA scores. Ascend Math was the online math program that was taking up 1 day each week, that was focused on remedial skills rather than pushing the current content. And reading classes created for the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade this year to assist the growing ESL population and address low reading scores. The next steps would be to create an action plan that needs to address the needs of the students and discuss the possible reasons for the low scores. Thank you. Bye-bye.